Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Will your team fall victim to the trap? That is what we are discussing today as we are breaking down all of the Big Ten teams' biggest trap games heading into 2022. Which game will it be where your team is favored to win, but there's just something that doesn't feel right about that next opponent? Or one game where your team is favored to win against an inferior opponent and they lose. Yes, that's an upset, but it's also a trap game. We are here to break down all of that today. And we're going to go ahead and jump right on into our list, guys, here in the Big Ten, starting with Ohio State. Their biggest trap game for us, October 29th at Penn State. That really shouldn't be a surprise for anybody. More than likely, this will be the big whiteout game in Happy Valley. Always one of the most difficult environments in all of college football. It's one of the greatest spectacles in college football, one of the toughest environments to play in, that whiteout game in Happy Valley. We've seen Penn State take down Ohio State during the whiteout game before. Would not be surprised to see it happen again in 2022. Ohio State will be coming off a game against Iowa. They do get to host that in Columbus, but still a physical game against one of the top teams in the West. Take on Penn State right after that. Night game in Happy Valley absolutely is a trap game. Going on to Michigan, October 1st at Iowa. This is Michigan's first road game, first true road game. They do not leave Ann Arbor for the entire month of September. So the first true road game they have is against one of the best teams in the West in one of the most difficult environments in all of college football in Kinnick Stadium. So very similar to that whiteout game in Happy Valley, Michigan has to face Iowa at Kinnick. Not saying it's an automatic loss for Michigan, but for a lot of teams it is. A lot of teams, when you travel to Kinnick, you don't escape with a victory. Will Michigan be able to do that in 2022? Michigan State, also October 1st, we have their trap game at Maryland. Because here's the thing, guys. They play Ohio State the week after. They play Ohio State right after Maryland, right? So you look at Michigan State and they're like, look, if you can take down Maryland, they can be 4-0. They can be undefeated. And you could also see Michigan State maybe looking ahead a little bit, maybe slightly looking ahead to that Ohio State game after getting annihilated by the Buckeyes in late November last year. So revenge on their mind, obviously a game that's huge and maybe determining who wins the Big Ten East. We could see Michigan State looking ahead to the Buckeyes and falling short on the road to a Maryland team that finally got over the hump last year under Mike Locksley, finally got to a bowl game, and has the chance to be even better in 2022. Penn State, our biggest trap game for them is the season opener for the Nittany Lions, September 1st at Purdue. Right now, Penn State is already about a 3-point favorite. So they're favored to win this game on the road, but Purdue's legit, guys. Aiden O'Connell is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. We ranked him second in the Big Ten when we ranked down all the Big Ten quarterback rankings. Penn State has a travel on the road. Yes, they do have Sean Clifford. This is a big game for Penn State. If they want to be taken seriously as Big Ten title contenders, they have to win this game over Purdue. It's on the road, season opener. Teams can be rusty in those season openers. It's a major trap game. And if they lose, it just gets the season off on the wrong foot. 2 weeks later, Penn State has to travel to Auburn. There's an opportunity, guys, where Penn State, in a scenario where Penn State starts the year off at 1-2 and their season's practically done at that point. That Purdue game is huge for them, and it's a trap game as well. Maryland. Their trap game, September 17th against SMU. We actually don't have it against a Big Ten opponent. There weren't many where we thought a Big Ten opponent would be a trap game for the Terrapins. But you look at this, guys. SMU's a solid team. New head coach in Rhett Lashley, great offensive mind. Great quarterback battle in this game between Talia Tagovailoa with Maryland, Tanner Mordecai with SMU. I expect this game to be filled with offense, very high scoring, and with SMU and their ability to put up the points, and Rhett Lashley being one of the more underrated new head coaches in the country, I would not be shocked to see the Mustangs come in here and upset Maryland. To me, this is a trap game before the Terrapins get into the bulk of their conference schedule. Would not be surprised to see SMU pull off this win. Got to be mindful of the Mustangs. Rutgers. Just like Maryland, there weren't many Big Ten opponents we viewed Rutgers as being in a trap scenario, because for a lot of these teams that are at the bottom of the conference, for a lot of these teams that aren't towards the best of the Big Ten, SEC, whatever, they're not really going to see many trap games because they're not going to be favored. They're going to be underdogs and no one views them as a threat. Rutgers is getting there. Rutgers showed drastic improvement last year where they go 5-7, made the bowl game because of the COVID issues and everything, got to play Wake Forest, but they're getting there under Greg Schiano. This road game at Temple, to me, proves to be a trap game. because they have a cupcake team in week 2. They travel to Boston College in week 1, but Rutgers dealing with a lot of new pieces, including a brand new quarterback in Gavin Wimsatt. How does he fit into the role? He'll have 2 games under his belt. Temple, again, nothing special last year, but should show a little bit of improvement, and it would not surprise me to see this game be extremely close and for Rutgers to fall short in this one due to the new pieces, due to it being on the road, and things like that. So watch out for that Temple game. It would be classic Rutgers, I feel like, to drop this one on the 17th. Indiana, how do you pick a trap game for a team that went 2-10 last year? Very, very difficult. Indiana should bounce back a little bit. We view their trap game as the season opener as well, a Friday night matchup against Illinois. Huge for these two teams, considering both could be fighting for a bowl berth by the end of the year. Illinois went 5-7 last year. We expect Indiana to bounce back a little bit. So their trap game is at home against an Illinois team that showed some life finally under Brett Bielema. So this is huge for Indiana. And again, for Tom Allen and his team to try to bounce back after such a disappointing year, start the year off 1-0 with a conference victory. But just because it's at home doesn't mean too much. It's definitely a very scary game for the Hoosiers, and we view that as the biggest trap for them. Again, also, first game of the year, a little bit rusty, kind of like we mentioned just a few games ago. Going into the West Division now, kind of drawing that line there. Iowa, biggest trap game, November 5th at Purdue. Let's remember, Iowa was a top 2 team in the country last year. Purdue walked into Kinnick and annihilated the Hawkeyes 24-7. Purdue can do it again in West Lafayette. It can happen at Purdue. Iowa certainly going to have revenge on their mind. Could be in the hunt for a Big Ten West title here, but they play Purdue, and it's also the game right before Wisconsin. Typically, that's the game that kind of determines who wins the Big Ten West. But I think your top 3 contenders are Iowa, Wisconsin, and Purdue in that Western Division. All those games are going to be huge here. The road game at Purdue, Iowa could be looking ahead to Wisconsin. They could get a little over-emotional, trying to get revenge on their mind. Purdue being legit this year. All those things to me just add up for a major trap game for Iowa here. We didn't think it would be last year, but it is now. Wisconsin, their biggest trap game, November 19th at Nebraska. We actually have Nebraska 2 times in a row here for Wisconsin and Minnesota. We'll break them down quickly. Wisconsin, why is it a trap game? Because Nebraska should be drastically improved. Casey Thompson comes in as the new quarterback from Texas. Mark Whipple comes in as the new offensive coordinator in Lincoln. It's a big year for Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers. And also, this is a Wisconsin team that's going to be playing Nebraska right after Iowa. So they could be riding a high after a big win against the Hawkeyes. Could be riding a low if they fall to the Hawkeyes. Maybe their Big Ten title shots are over. Something like that. You never know what the stakes will be this late in the year. But this road game at Nebraska, one of the most passionate fan bases in all of college football, very difficult place to play. Spells trap game for me, for the Badgers, especially if they're towards the top of the standings at this point. Same goes for Minnesota. They're legitimate contenders in the West. No one's talking that much about them, but they go on the road to take on a Nebraska team, like we just mentioned, should show drastic improvement. It is a difficult place to play. And again, if they can fix up their defense and finally find some help at quarterback, could be that dark horse contender in the Big Ten West. And we could see them take down Minnesota here. Again, the month of November is always very wild. I think this is the biggest trap game here for the Golden Gophers. Purdue, their biggest trap game, the road game at Maryland. Again, another great quarterback battle. Aiden O'Connell, Talia Tagovailoa, possibly very high scoring here. Really, which defense is going to step up the most? But Purdue, every game matters here. They take down Penn State in week 1, like we just mentioned. Purdue will start to be taken seriously as a Big Ten West contender. Could find themselves in the Big Ten championship game. Maryland could spoil that in early October. Purdue cannot afford to overlook the Terrapins here. That's going to be a very tricky game here that no one's talking about, but it could have major implications down the road. Illinois, the home game against Minnesota. Again, an Illinois team that's never really that great, so it was kind of hard to find a trap game for them. If you don't like the game against Minnesota, you can make the argument that it's the road game at Northwestern in the season finale. That won a bigger trap game as well because Illinois was 5-7 last year. If they find themselves with 5 wins in that season finale against Northwestern, that's a trap game. It's a rivalry game, and it's going to be make or break. Does Illinois get to go bowling, or do they stay home? So those 2 games for me are going to be huge for the Fighting Illini. Nebraska, their trap game, the road game at Purdue, right there in the middle of the season. If Nebraska, is 4-3, 4-3, 4-4, 3-4, whatever it is. This game against Purdue is a trap game because it could completely alter the course of the rest of the year. They beat Purdue on the road. Things are looking good, especially if they've had a solid start to the year. They fall and they've just been mediocre. They could start to spiral. So that's going to be huge for Nebraska here. It's a pivotal game, but it's a trap game on the road. And finally, Northwestern, we have any non-conference game. Northwestern was wildly disappointing in 2021. We expect them to bounce back a little bit, but maybe not win the Big Ten West bounce back. And you look at their non-conference games, it's a home game against Duke, Southern Illinois, and Miami, Ohio in 3 consecutive weeks. Duke has major questions, new head coach, quarterback issues, but could come in and hang with Northwestern, especially if they struggle once again. Southern Illinois is one of the better teams in the FCS. We've seen FCS teams take down Northwestern before, or at least hang with them. And then Miami, Ohio on September 24th, one of the better teams in the MAC last year, will be again this year, and they certainly have the offense and the talent to come into Evanston and upset the Wildcats. So any of those non-conference games for me are a major trap game for Northwestern, and if they drop one of them, it could spell for another very long and disappointing season for Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern. So there you have it, guys. Those are what we believe to be the biggest trap games for all of the Big Ten opponents, guys. Our Big Ten teams. We are going to have our predictions for the Big Ten coming out here in a few weeks. Prediction season starts very, very soon, so we'll have predictions for all of these games, whether we believe your team will fall victim to the trap or not. We're going to do it for every team across the entire country, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But until that point, guys, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. We want you to become a part of what we're building here at the channel. We want you to become a part of our GE Nation, so make sure to do that today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.